Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer for Breeders' Cup Prep Recap, and we're going to take a look back at the Woodbine Mile, which is a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Mile. The Woodbine Mile is a one-turn mile, and as we break from the gate, this race was supposed to be a coronation for the odds-on favorite, the post position 2, number 2, Naval Power, who went off at 1-2. Naval Power had a very good trip in this race and came up flat.
Yeah, he'd run in a couple of tougher Grade 1 races when he first got over here in the spring, Dan, and he ran really well in both of those races, even though he didn't win either. And you're right. I mean, it felt like this was a great spot for him. He gets a really good trip in this race, and he just doesn't really fire a good shot. Very disappointed here from the favorite.
Mark Casse had 3 horses in this race, including the pace setter, the 5, Philo D'Ariana, who was able to get to the lead when the European invader Big Rock, who was expected to show speed, just broke like a lot of Europeans, didn't get out of there as quick as he should have.
Yeah, it certainly helped Philo D'Ariana in this race to make the lead. You're right, Big Rocky. You go back and watch the head-on replay too, Dan. It's not like there was a stumble or a bump or anything. He just didn't get out of the gate that sharply. And then I feel like his rider did the right thing after that. Rispoli just sort of let him sit back. He's rating last here, saving ground. He's actually going to make a run in this race, but he's just not quite good enough and can't get there. Philo D'Ariana, to his credit, takes advantage of this trip and holds on for second.
Keep an eye on the red cap. That's win for the money. Trips don't get any better than this from a closer's standpoint. You're saving ground in mid-pack. The rail opens up. You shoot on through. Rispoli did a great job getting Big Rock from off the rail, weaving his way through in between horses without being stopped. And now it's those two to the wire. But maybe it was the ground loss that cost Big Rock. But win for the money really fired. The trip helped, but he ran big.
He got a great trip. This was a perfect ride from Patrick Husbands in here. He rated this horse to the back. He made sure to get over. And then all he did was sit behind Naval Power for most of this trip. That he just followed Naval Power to the top of the stretch. And when that horse vacated the inside, it was wide open for a win for the money. He came through. And to his credit, he also had the best finish in this race. I mean, let's not pretend that he didn't. Big Rock had a shot at this thing. Philo D'Ariana had every chance to win on the lead in this race. Naval Power was clear off the quarter pole, had every chance to win in this race, and win for the money had the best finish.
Let's be honest. Does this race really have Breeders' Cup implications? Philo D'Ariana has speed, and I guess that is always a wonderful asset to have, especially on the turf. Maybe the rock hard turf course at Del Mar, or expected rock hard turf course, helps a speed horse like this, or is he just a little bit below top class?
I mean, it'd be hard to make in a race like the Breeders' Cup Mile, but I guess we'll see how that all plays out. You always sort of feel like the Europeans are the ones that you want to look out for in that race. Listen, the last 3 Breeders' Cup Miles have gone to Godolphin, Appleby, and Buick. I think they've won the last 3 of those. They probably were thinking maybe Naval Power would be one of the horses this year. I don't think that's going to happen after this Woodbine Mile, but I'm sure they've got others. Out of this race, I don't want to knock win for the money because he's underrated and he ran well in here, good trip or not, but he's going to be hard to make at the Breeders' Cup.
Big Rock, if he does decide to go, will be facing tougher European competition, but it was at least nice to see him run a little bit in here because while he had a tremendous amount of back class overseas, his form coming into this year's Woodbine Mile was somewhat in question.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, this was his 4th start. His first 3 starts were not good as a 4-year-old for a new trainer as well. So he did move forward, I guess, a little bit in here, Dan. I don't know, different running style or not, and this was first-time blinkers also. I don't know. I just thought he ran okay in this race. After the slow start, I thought he got a really good trip and just kind of wasn't good enough. He does have races from last year that could make him a dangerous horse somewhere. I'm not sure if it's the Breeders' Cup.
No real excuses for Play Me a Tune, the 5th place finisher. They were asking a lot of him, however. Turf debut, stretching out for the first time, and stepping up into a whole different class of racehorse. I have a feeling if we see him next year, he might be able to do some damage.
I'm going to agree with all that stuff. I mean, this was a really, really tough ask for this horse, and he just, wasn't quite up for it here in his turf debut, his mile debut. He's got a little bit of quality though. This horse, maybe he's ultimately just going to be a synthetic sprinter, Dan, but this horse is pretty good.
The third of the Cassie train runners, the sixth place finisher, My Boy Prince, was coming into this race as a 3-year-old facing older. He had just placed in the Queen's Plate, going a mile and a quarter a race, a King's Plate, going a mile and a quarter a race where he just didn't stay. He obviously has some talent. It'll be really interesting to see what Cassie decides to do with him. He's good on synthetic. He's
Yeah.
good on turf at a variety of distances.
Yeah, you don't want to hold this race against him. He's the only 3-year-old in the field. It was another horse, a pretty tall order for him. They took a shot. Maybe ultimately he is a turf miler down the road. He's still got plenty of room to improve. This race was just too tough for him.
Let's take a closer look at Win for the Money, a $95,000 yearling purchase who then resold for $350,000 as a 2-year-old in training to Live Oak Plantation. They had a fantastic Saturday at Woodbine. Mark Cassie, who ran 1-2 in this race, had a fantastic weekend at Woodbine. And Win for the Money is beginning to live up to his pedigree. His by Mo Heyman was a little bit of a disappointment as a stallion, but what a strong female family. A half to a multiple stakes winner. Price Talk won stakes on turf and dirt. The dam's a half to Juniper Pass, who is a good multiple grade 2 stakes winner on the lawn. This is the direct female family of one of the great stallions of our generation, Stormcat. And as we talked about Win for the Money in the stakes preview race of the day, Mike, this horse earned a 102 buyer speed figure at Gulfstream, and then you could have made excuses for his 2 losses going into the Woodbine Mile. That Churchill track in the Wise Dan, wired by Ottoman Fleet, and then wired in a very slow-paced race 2 starts back. He got a better setup here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're the one who made the point in the stakes preview that this was the interesting long shot in the race, and you were probably going to get a fair price on a horse who had a race that was going to make him a contender in here if he could run it back, and he did run it back in here. He got the right trip, Dan, but this horse ran pretty well in here and took advantage of some circumstances to become a Grade 1 winner.
We'll see if Win for the Money goes for the big money in the Breeders' Cup Mile, but he paid good money on the tote in the Woodbine Mile, $29.30 to win. Philo De Ariano was second, completing the Mark Cassie Exacta. Big Rock didn't break very well, but came with a good solid run for third. Win for the Money wins the Woodbine Mile. It's a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Mile.